Welcome everybody to episode 13 of Creative Flux. I'm Pierson.
And I'm Bilal.
And we
totally didn't practice this.
didn't practice that. But yeah, we talk about generative media. And today we have a bunch of cool stuff to talk about. Last week we were talking about Voyager model, and then we talked about a bunch of stuff. It's always really fun to chat. But this week we got Seedance, we have Descartes fast video gen, we have a lot of things we didn't talk about last week, but yeah, I mean, space is moving fast. It's fun.
It is. And I guess I think Seedance, or is it Seedream? But I feel like the image editing space in particular has been really getting its moment. We talked about Nano Banana the last couple of weeks and how good it was at editing images and making very granular edits. And it sounds like ByteDance released it's called Seedream. Okay, ByteDance's Seedream model has been released, and it's supposedly better than Nano Banana. I think I've seen some of the examples I saw; they were really good. And I think a couple of places where it really stood out was combining different types of formats. So you could take a cartoon character and then take a photorealistic image and put the cartoon character in the image. I don't know. I feel like Nano Banana struggled a little bit that. The other thing where it's matched Nano Banana, which I think people haven't done enough experimenting, is multiple image output. So you can actually ask Seedream to output like 4 or 5 images. And that's pretty cool because you can basically get a consistent story line with the same theme, with the same character, in one shot, which I think is very powerful. And then you can obviously combine that with a video generator to get like 5-second scenes, etc. So powerful.
That's super interesting. You just mentioned something that we talked about last week about like the what was that movie with LeBron James, Space Jam?
Space Jam, not LeBron James, MJ.
Michael Jordan. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Although LeBron did do a
the new one.
copycat of it because he's trying to, he thinks he's MJ. I mean, I will say, they're both up there. It's the LeBron versus MJ debate will all go on forever.
It'll go on forever. But is there a name for that style? Like, has somebody coined that style?
That's a
where
good question.
It's
that's a very good
animation and a real
animation realism. I just think of like Roger Rabbit, like the Roger, because that was the first movie that did that, and it's crazy. It came out in the late 80s, and still looks so good, like better than most things you'd see today, which is crazy.
Right. Really, I feel like we have to make a term for that, because I agree with you. It's a really powerful style that hasn't been explored much. And it really merges two styles. Because like what we were talking about last week with Wreck-It Ralph, and how you have a character that goes between worlds and they maintain their own style, like a pixel art goes into a 3D high res world, but also in like movies. I mean, that's that'd be interesting. I feel like we have to think of a name for that eventually.
Yeah,
we can coin it.
But it is underused. You don't really see that. You don't really see a different animation, like worlds colliding. And I wonder if that's like a new type of art form that is yet to be explored. Because we talked about obviously anime and photorealism, but what if it's just like Pixar and Ghibli or something like that? Just like, or maybe that's just too ugly. But it would be interesting.
No, it's so cool. I remember there used to be like some Nickelodeon shows. I think it was Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network. I forget who now on the top of my head, but there were some like these mashup episodes where I think it was Cartoon Network, right? Timmy Turner from the Fairly Odd Parents would go into like Danny Phantom and like these other worlds, and it'd be like these weird mashup type of episodes where a character from another show on the same network would come in. You're like, wait, what are you doing here? Like, it makes no sense. Like it was multiverse before multiverse became uncool with Marvel.
Right.
So yeah, no,
that's awesome.
Interesting. There were some things. So last night I was at AI Tinkerers and I demoed that Satori MCP server. It was pretty cool. I think everyone really liked it. It was
Explain, I guess, a recap for the audience what Satori is.
Right. So I built this thing leveraging Vercel's Satori library, which allows you to programmatically generate images using React components. So
Nice.
it's really it's a cool library that just provide a React component, and then it's a rendering engine that converts that React component into an SVG. And then I took that library and wrapped it around with other stuff like converting the SVG to the PNG, allowing you to provide dimensions, making a bunch of different templates that already look good for different use cases, such as like a social card, a blog cover art, a YouTube thumbnail. I did that one this morning because I just
Nice.
posted a YouTube video, this cool thumbnail to be able to be reused over time. And I think that's like a key because why I built this originally was anytime I wanted to create a YouTube thumbnail or a blog cover art, I went into Photoshop and I had a template kind of in Photoshop, but it's way too difficult to make good changes in Photoshop because text wrapping is hard. If you have a long
Hmm.
title, it's not going to automatically text wrapped around the canvas. The spacing is going to be weird, but if you can just write a React component with Flexbox and say, hey, give it 16 pixels of padding,
Right.
wrap it around, align this vertically, like you can just define a nice little component that you can swap out the text or the images from.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was like, well, that's cool. I did that. And then now can I create an MCP server? So ChatGPT, as of yesterday, because they have MCP support.
Oh yeah, the ChatGPT developers came out.
Right. So we could talk about that too. But yeah, so now you could just like chat and say, hey, create this blog cover art template with the title, create a Flux episode 13, and then the description this, and it'll go. And then you can iterate on that. And the coolest thing is that you can actually have consistency every time. So like, let's say you mess up the title. The next time you say change the title and it'll just change the title and keep everything else the same because it's literally using a template
Right.
and rendering the template, not going to diffusion model. And so I thought that was just really cool because you leverage the power of LLMs to be able to
Yeah.
write
No, I
code.
think it's super powerful. And even when as these editing models like, Seedream, Nano Banana get really good at editing, I still think there's, a great like, space for this kind of programmatic, approach because you can have something that's way super cheap, super fast because it's just code. And it's obviously, very, it'll give you the exact changes you want. It looks exactly the same. And then I wonder if there's like a hybrid approach where you can do the programmatic approach where you can swap out the text, but then maybe you generate a new avatar and then add that. So you kind of combine the AI with the procedural like programmatic driven template.
It'd be really cool because I was thinking about this yesterday. Dex brought this up and he was like, could you add in like a generative model for the background? Because like some of the templates, you could provide a background image.
Hmm.
And if you don't provide that, like, could you provide a prompt for the background image and then just generate something versus providing the image, which could make total sense. And then the other thing that I went down this rabbit hole is if you have the programmatic image being generated, could you apply a layer at the end? So like you do the iteration process to get like the right text there, the right font, everything. And at the very end, you just apply like a filter, a layer on top using like a great model like Flux Context or something, Nano Banana, that just at the very end, the very last step is like applying the diffusion model when the text is already correct and just applies a layer. So like maybe you have
Mm,
this font, but you want that font to kind of look psychedelic.
right,
And
right,
it's just like convert this to a psychedelic image. And then you've already like iterated and done all of like the testing on all of the first steps. But now just like apply the filter at the end to make it psychedelic. And it's like
right. Yeah,
work.
it does. Yeah, no, it's super powerful. And it's funny. Like we talk about these concepts come from Photoshop layers and stuff. I wonder like if you can apply them to video. Like you could just have a background layer, you have a character layer, glasses layer or
Sure.
whatever, and then you can just change that real time, like from frame this to this, just change the glasses to something like without glasses for some reason, that could be, I mean, you can do it, I guess, regenerating a video, but I'm trying to think of a more efficient approach where you can edit the frames and then the exact pixels,
Right.
of the.
I think there's a lot of concepts that have been very well thought out over the last few decades when it comes to graphics, whether it's image, like static images in Photoshop or like Premiere Pro and layers there. Because Premiere Pro is like Photoshop on steroids, kind of.
Mhm.
It's just Photoshop times a million because you could deal with frames over the course of a video. But it's very well thought out and a powerful tool if you know how to leverage it.
Yes, yes. I mean, no, these are tools like these old school tools actually are like still around and they're so powerful. And speaking of which, now I understand like why I thought about the video because what I saw was EB Synth. I don't know if you've ever played with EB Synth, but it's like an OG tool as well. I think Mac only app, which lets you do stuff like the Premiere Pro, but like for videos. And they actually leverage AI to do this, where you had like a lion walking and they put like markings on the lion, and the video just continued with the lion having the marking. So they're approaching this video. I know exactly the science behind it, but it is super cool that you can just edit videos like this.
Right.
And I
I was
imagine
always
Premiere Pro has that too. So
I remember just always being so frustrated as a kid trying to make some, like, basic videos. Like, I remember there's videos that I would make where you'd record something normally, and then you just reverse it, so it looks like if you're jumping onto the bed, it looks like you're jumping off the bed like a Jedi,
right, right.
or like the ball, like you throw a ball and it's like more like a force. I always thought that was so cool, and then you would try to, like, remove and they had very basic non-AI effects kind of that would help you, like, isolate things and help you remove them. I was like, "Why is this not easier?" Like, I just always remember thinking, like, "I see the ball right there, like, just or delete it, just
I
delete it
know
and
it's
track
so
it." I
it's
was just like,
there.
"Why can't you do that? It's there, like, I could see it, like,
Right,
why
right.
can't you do that, computer? You know, why are you so dumb?"
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll have those possibilities. Are increasing now and becoming easier. These things are becoming way easier to do. So that's awesome.
Right,
And it's like speaking of the effects you were saying, like so many cool, interesting effects like I'm seeing on like on Twitter, etc., are coming directly from these new capabilities. So one of the capabilities we talked about was first and last frame last time,
right,
where you give it this is the first frame, this is the last frame, and then you can create a 5-second video. And we talked about how that can lead to more granular director level control because you can create control the scene how it goes and then
right.
takes the end frame and use that as the start frame of the next one and so on. A really cool interesting flow I saw, which I didn't even think about, but I was like, oh, this is awesome. Was somebody figured out what if I take the image I want, make that the last frame, and make the first image like a white screen or a black screen? And so they were able to create like those videos where a logo, like they took the Apple logo or whatever, and they gave a prompt about how the apple's going to come and a black screen. And what the way it came out was somebody drew the apple on a blank canvas, like that kind of effect, or and then wrote like something. And I was like, oh, that is so cool, so like you took like the feature that wasn't really meant for it, but like you create this in really interesting
Right.
use out of it. So yeah, I mean we'll probably see those kind of examples all over with these new models that we haven't even thought about.
No, it's super interesting. I wonder, like, if Apple's, iPhone 17 event, if they used any sort of AI to help do those designs. They've been doing those forever. Um, yeah, that's a whole other like topic, I mean, too, but
Oh no, so this was just I used Apple as an example, but somebody did that on it. I don't think Apple unfortunately did anything. I think they've kind of thrown in the towel with AI. They're partnering with I think last I heard Google now for Siri. And I didn't really watch the keynote. I know a lot of people, but I mean I remain an Apple fanboy. Yeah, the 17 was kind of a I didn't I get people didn't really get excited from what I saw. Like it was just like, oh, we made a thinner iPhone. I'm like, all right, cool, I guess.
one of the interesting takes that I heard from there was that I mean, you always have there's a limit, there's a ceiling to every sort of innovation, like, you can't do that much more after a time, that the jumps just get smaller and smaller, but somebody I saw on Twitter was talking about how the iPhone Air could potentially be a way for Apple to prep the supply chain for developing really thin sort of chips and batteries for glasses. So it's like they need more time to be able to perfect like getting it down super small and lightweight so they can actually make glasses or the Vision Pro 2, which should come out in some form in the next year or so,
Right.
lighter, so you actually have the battery, like, in the headset versus on the side and, like, all those things, so
Yeah,
maybe it
yeah.
was, like, a supply chain type of
I mean,
release.
They do know hardware. I mean, they're still one of the, the great companies that does hardware. So I mean,
Right.
I'm still hoping they can figure those things out.
And the live translation is sick.
Oh yeah, I was gonna come to that. That was like probably the one piece that I was like, wow. So to kind of back up, what we're talking about is the AirPods release, where AirPod 3 Pro release, and where one feature they showed off, which I don't know how much of that is vaporware because they've done that before, but the way the demo worked, you could like, as you're wearing the AirPods, you're talking to someone in, let's say, they're speaking Spanish or whatever, you're speaking in English. The AirPods will silence the person's like make the volume go down on their voice and then give you a live translation, which is like a really nice UX that I didn't even think about, but that's a very nice, subtle way of doing live translation. Because I always thought, like, how would you, if it's like somebody speaking and you're getting live translation, like that's like, how are you going to process that? But that makes sense. You kind of like, make their voice a little lower and have that overlay almost.
Right. It's super
Very
cool. I
cool.
hope I hope it works. I think like this is one of those things that everybody talked about, like the universal translator.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it's funny because I mean, this is like the practical solution. The more sci-fi solution where we saw, I forgot the company, but was that company that they had a
Yeah.
dem. I don't know, but it was basically where you can send your thoughts to the other person. So, I mean, from first principles, that's what are our mouths? Why are we moving them up and down trying to communicate? That seems so caveman-like, right? I mean, just like beam my thoughts into your head, right? I mean, that's that's the most efficient way to communicate.
I remember I went down this whole rabbit hole one time where it's just like it definitely there's a book about this, but I've never read the book, but I had a similar idea where, humanity is a bunch of individual thinkers, but aggregated together, we're pretty predictable. Like anything randomish and any randomness in life is like pretty predictable on a grand scheme, and like the distribution of balls that fall down to like a plinko board or whatever all follow that bell curve. But individuals, we all are unique individually, but when you put everybody into society, everybody kind of falls into like a place. You have people everywhere on every spectrum. And I was like, well, AI is such an interesting thing because it's a compression of all human knowledge. Essentially, you've taken everything that we've ever written and put down onto paper, and then now videos and images and the world, and we've compressed it into a model that's essentially a lossy sort of replication of all of humanity. It's like this
Mhm.
one thing, like ChatGPT, GPT-5, and Gemini are literally a compression of everything humanity's ever known, and sometimes more lossy than others with hallucinations and everything. But if that is like literally like a singularity moment where you could ask this one thing, anything about like anything, and coming back to people, like it, it's kind of literally doing the thing where it's taken all of our knowledge and just condensing it. So if society, we could just transmit thoughts and everything to each other, it'd just be really interesting. I mean,
Yeah, no, for sure. It's what's that biblical? I forget the tower where the story where humanity. I mean, the mythology is like we all used to communicate. We knew each other's thoughts, and then forget the name. Is it the Babylon tower or whatever? But it broke down, and then everyone suddenly became confused, and we need to develop languages to you know.
interesting.
Um, yes, it's the it's gonna bother me. Or of Babylon.
Yeah, no, it's so wild. Like you can go down so many rabbit
Yeah,
holes.
it's Tower of Babel. Sorry. Yeah, the Tower of Babel. So that was the what do you call it? The people to scatter the earth. Just the story of Tower of Babel, Book of Genesis. Where humanity once spoke a single unified language, but God confused it into multiple languages to stop the construction of a tower and cause people to scatter across the earth. Well, we're gonna build that tower. It'll be more in a hard drive, but we're building it back, and hopefully we'll be able to unify each other. Yeah, I think it would be if you imagine a sci-fi world where we can just communicate with our thoughts. I think of all the things that, the gaps we have because, we don't speak the same language, or the subtleties of a culture. If we can like express that to each other, I feel like that could go a long way in, like not to sound woo, but like world peace and understanding and all that hippie stuff.
And it's super interesting. I, like, what blows my mind when I think about this it's how small we are in like the timeline of humanity and knowledge, and when it comes to intelligent species. I mean, if like we the wildest thing about AI is like you could debate this and how true you may or how much you may believe in this, but like we took sand, rocks, and now rocks, we talk to rocks. Like it's crazy. Like we created like we derived chips from rocks, and now we like work with rocks that we can talk to. It's like we created like a species from nothing, not a species that like, it's
Right.
some sort of intelligence, that we just created
From
from
rock. This is the rock age.
rocks.
I like that. The rock
And
age.
then you think about and you extrapolate this, it's like going from, okay, we created this intelligence. It's a lossy compression of all human knowledge. And I believe that we aren't alone in the universe. I think it's like a unlikely thing to be. I don't think if we are, I think if we do have other people in the universe, other species, intelligent life forms, they're likely to be potentially farther along than we are. It'd be pretty interesting to think that we are the most intelligent species in the entire universe if there's others out there. And so I think it's a safe assumption to think that they've been able to create something similar to what we've done with language models, a compression of all their knowledge. And when I think about aliens, like we're getting so deep on this, but when I think about aliens, I mean, I imagine that aliens don't come to Earth. If they were to come to Earth, they wouldn't come to Earth in like a ship, travel, and like a physical being would be there. It would be more so there's like a signal of knowledge that comes that's like radio waves or something in the universe that
Hmm.
comes and hits Earth. Like imagine if we took ChatGPT, GPT-5, and we just started transmitting all that information
Hmm.
across the universe and say, just like beaming it out. It's like, hey, we are humans. This is ChatGPT. You can learn anything about humanity and everything that we know, and just beaming it out into the universe. Something out there could receive like, hey, what is this signal that we're getting? And they're able to like record it, and then they're able to interpret it, and they're like, whoa, this is like this compressed version of this species that lives out in the universe, and we can just learn about it. And you could think about that vice versa. I
Yeah.
mean,
No, it's interesting. Like it's so, I mean, yeah, I can go down this rabbit hole too, but it's so fascinating because I remember I watched Carl Sagan's interview he did this in the 80s, and he talks about how like the first actually they did this where they sent out information and through TV stations and stuff like radio signals. So he's like, but it'll take like years to reach. So he's talking in the 80s. He's like, if theoretically aliens would pick up on our signals now, they will basically find television programming from the 50s,
right.
right? So it's like yeah, so that will be their uh, impression of what it's like on Earth right now. And so you can imagine how now that same signal is now 6 years out. So it's fascinating to see the time differential. And the other point about like aliens about being technologically more superior, I actually think that's most likely the case. I mean, it's basically, I don't know if you ever read the three body problem or
I never have,
heard of
not
it,
yet.
but it's
Yeah.
it's very dark. It's like a dark take on it, but it kind of makes sense. The base assumption is that I don't want to give too much away if anyone wants to read it. Although I think it gets really weird. He kind of flubs the ending, in my opinion. But great setup as a book. But the idea is basically that most civilizations, if they are alien civilizations, the likelihood that they are at our level or below is actually very small because if you look at it from a time span, if you're here on an infinite horizon, the chances that a civilization comes after is more advanced is like way higher than it was less advanced because it's either life never happened or it happened and they destroyed themselves. And so if you take that out, it's like if they actually exist, they're more likely to be more advanced.
Interesting. Right.
And it actually leads to a theory that the author came up with. It's called dark forest theory, which is basically that any civilization that's advanced enough, the game theory is you should never reveal yourself because if you reveal yourself, the only civilizations that can pick up your signal are more advanced than you, and from their point of view, the only reasonable maneuver is to kill you before you become more advanced,
Right.
basically, because they're like, you can only be a threat. And so the idea is that's what that his response to the Fermi paradox, which is like, why aren't there more alien civilizations? That they just are dark because intentionally because they don't want to reveal themselves. I don't buy that. I feel like, hopefully the universe is a little kinder than that. I just think my take is that we just underestimate how vast space is, and if you actually and we can totally be the only civilization in the Milky Way, even. I mean, and even that would take us, like, if you look at just how big the Milky Way is, it's ridiculous. We haven't even explored that. And that's like one point in the whole universe. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy. So, and then finally, the other point I'll make coming back to our language thing, and it's very interesting, is like in the book, the way the aliens talk are through thoughts. So it
Oh,
actually, they have that. It's just part of their biology. And one of the reasons they want to kill humanity in the book is because don't, what they get freaked out about is the concept of lying, because they have always communicated with their thoughts. So in the book, they get freaked out when somebody tells them about how humans, they're like, he's talking about Robin Hood, and he's like, can I meet Robin Hood? And he's like, oh no, it's just a story, it's a myth. They're like, what do you as a myth? And then the alien learns about you can say things that are not true, and that freaks them out because they're like, they have no concept of this and they're like, because they're more intelligent, they immediately realize that that is like an existential threat, because they will always say the truth and we can lie to them, and so that means that they can never be a negotiation.
mm.
It's a very deep book. I mean, he really goes down this rabbit hole, but that's one of the reasons they want to kill us in the book, among other things, among the resources.
Is it a Chinese book and it was translated?
Yeah, it's a single Lee, but yeah, he wrote it as a Chinese book, then it got translated, and now there's a Netflix series about it too, which I think it's actually did a decent job, a better job than the book, because the book is like one of those hard sci-fi books where he'll like go down a 50-page rabbit hole of why quantum mechanics works and how do this so on gets from A to B and all that, and I'm like, I don't want to know.
So watch the Netflix show.
I recommend the Netflix series. I think it's pretty good. I mean, it does help if you have read the book, because you see the concepts happening, and I feel like the 50-page rabbit hole definitely gives it more depth. You're like, oh, I understand how they fucked up the physics
Mm.
here, how that happened.
No, that's
But
interesting.
sorry, coming back, yeah, that was a deep sci-fi rabbit hole. But in case aliens are hearing us right now, we come in peace. And
Go in peace.
yeah, please share the tech. We are very techno accelerationist on Creative Flux, and we want to do good. We want to build cool stuff.
We have this thing called a nano banana, which we'll have to show you. We can make shrimp Jesus real.
Yeah, there you go.
There's this thing I saw. Did you see the Nano Banana Infinimap?
Oh yeah, I know. What is that?
So pretty much like for anybody that doesn't know about Nano Banana, we've talked about it now a few episodes, but it's just like a pretty good, consistent model. But there's this guy that made this thing called the Nano Banana Infinimap, and it's a map generator. So like if you've ever played a video game or anything, and you always have like your mini map building and world building is really fun, I think, for a lot of people. And what he did was that he took a infinite canvas and pretty much defined some squares along that canvas, and people could come into this map and use Nano Banana to generate a piece of that like
Nice.
map. And so just like you had in like a few years ago, we had like those massive infinite canvases where people can just
Right.
put a color on different pixels and you can like see people and everybody's editing
Right.
this massive thing. He did the same thing with Nano Banana, where it's more of this like world building
So
experience.
is it like live, and like people can come and see other people's like edits as well, and then scroll and
I
generate themselves,
don't
or
know if it's hosted in live. Kind of, it's a public repo, open source repo.
like?
It would probably be a pretty fun little like thing to test out live real time connections where you
I
guys.
think that would be super sick. I actually think this would still be a sick idea once, if ever NFTs come back.
All
This is
right.
like, I know it sounds funny, but I had this idea where I was thinking during the Web3 era, what if, people were selling these JPEGs for millions of dollars? And I was like, but these are stupid. But I was thinking, what if you could create a crowdsourced environment where you start with an empty canvas, and then you have like a 60-minute clock. Anyone could come in and generate using a prompt, like an image, and then edit that image, and you basically do let the crowd go crazy on it and hammer it live for 60 minutes. And at the end, it's frozen and locked, and you create a video of all the edits that were made, and you make a GIF out of it.
Whoa.
And that's the NFT. And then it's get minted for that hour, and then you continue for every hour. It
That's
was,
cool.
it was just like this weird crowdsourced live art project thing, which I think would be cool and probably go viral, but waiting. So if NFTs, start, getting more popular, maybe I'll look into it with Nano Banana or Seedream.
So in that, would the people in the last few minutes, they would have the most power because it's like the last 59th minute?
So I had two versions of this. The first idea was this, which would be the video where I think any edit wouldn't be more powerful than any other edit. Maybe there's, because of the thumbnail or whatever, you can say the first image or the last image could be more powerful because that might define the thing, but it's a video. But the second version was that the last edit is the actual image, and you kind of, it's almost like you, and I actually wanted to make it like a lottery thing where you have to buy it, but you don't know what you're going to get, and then people start editing it, so you could end up with a dick pic or whatever.
It's very probably likely.
But imagine, like, what do you call that Vegas machine?
Look,
Slot machine. It's like a slot machine almost. So that's what I was saying. You could even have the animation of a slot machine. It's like coming in.
that's no, that's funny. That's sick.
But I do think it's something we'll see. Because last time when the NFT mania happened in 2021, it was not like we didn't really have image generation. It was just starting. We kind of had stable diffusion, but it was pretty shitty, and people were generating stuff. But now with edits, you can imagine. So if you know about NFTs, there's usually there's a series. So you have the consistent branding. So something like Azukis or Bored Apes, like it's the same. It's very similar art form. Like you have an ape, you have a background, and then you have different assets. So an ape could have a hat. They could have glasses. They could have a shirt. So these are different items, but they are very find in the algorithm, in the contract about. And so with edits, it used to be that an artist would create, like, let's say 1,000 of these JPEGs, and everything was hand curated. And I actually think for the most premium NFTs, you probably will still have hand curation, because it's like having a Hermes bag or whatever, in the equivalent ways. I mean, it's still JPEGs, but whatever, right? We're talking in our land of, make made up scarcity in Web3 world.
Right.
But with image editing, anyone can come in, start with the base image of a character, and then you're like, all right, give me 20 different hairstyles now. Okay, that's 20 there. Now give me 20 different eye sets. Now 20 times 20, that's 400 versions created right there, right? That's combos. And so you do that and you do the math, and you can create, let's say, 10,000, 10,000, 20,000 versions of a base character. And then voila, you have an NFT collection right there.
Right.
So I think we'll see
Bro,
this a lot, when the next crypto Web3 NFT boom happens, which it will. I think it's a when, not an if, whether you
you think
like it
so?
or not.
You think why do you take that opinion? Like it's a win versus an if. Like why do you think that the NFT is going to come back in terms of like playing cards? I'm
I
just
think
curious.
it because it's like saying, will gambling be a thing again? I mean, it's just human nature. I don't opine on the utility of it. You can come up with any your reasons, but I think if you just look at human nature, and we almost live in this post-economic world where money kind of doesn't matter, and people, like, at least invest that way. The NFTs will, I think, will just be a conduit of degenerate gambling. If nothing else, just like the idea that I can buy a JPEG and I can resell it for 20 times its value is just going to be enough. And you have other forms of it, like prediction markets, just meme stocks, memes. So I think of NFTs almost like a mimetic instrument. And so I think it will exist. Now, the factor might change. Maybe we get away from a JPEG. Maybe you need to be more interesting, but just having digital artifacts that you can sell and resell, and the value of it comes not because it gives you any utility, but just from the community, that I think will remain.
Do you think the value is derived because it's an NFT, or do you think it's like NFT is just that mechanism used to identify like this is some object and it's anybody can verify that, or like because I always was just I like the thing was I didn't really get was that something being the NFT, I think that didn't add value to the thing, and it was like if you cared about the art, why is now the art more valuable because it's an NFT? Like I know NFT, like making it as an NFT gives you like you anybody can validate like the ownership of that thing. And like, it's just more of though the certificate of authenticity of that thing versus that thing being valuable. So I just was always just
Yeah, I
confused on
think
like
that's what
why
it I think
people.
you nailed it. It's basically that it's a certificate. It's just saying, "Oh, I own this NFT." Now, you can say, "Well, I right-clicked and copied and I have the same picture," but I can say I have a hash that points to the fact that I own this NFT, and because of that, maybe I get access to like a Discord or whatever, and they can verify, and or just it's purely status symbols. Like, oh wow, I can just say it's purely like most art, half the value, if not more, is just derived from the fact that I can say I own the art. That's one of the reasons people buy art. They can say, "Oh, I own a Rothko."
Totally. Right. Wrapping this all together too, like this just gave me like this really cool idea. So what you were just talking about, like NFTs and minting the images and then the Nano Banana Infinimap. I'm like thinking right now, so I don't know, like maybe I'll share the screen real quick just so you can see what I'm seeing. So this is like the GitHub repo, and
Ooh, nice.
it's like you could just see this
Wow.
world and you just kind of this imagine that this little map right here was split up into like 1,000 by 1,000 grid, and then every grid you could just kind of put a prompt in and generate that thing.
Wow, this is like a proper like gaming in my head when you first mentioned it, I was expecting like a more of a 2D square like globe type thing where you kind of get a one by one grid or something. But this is like a proper like world. Yeah.
Right. It's kind of cool because I mean, now comparing this to what you were just talking with NFTs, like
Mhm.
imagine you jump into a canvas, infinite canvas, and it's just a big grid empty, and you see people designing parts of the world everywhere,
Yeah.
and then you go in, you zoom into like this one little grid square, and you go, hey, I want little like a little tree right here, and then you go to the next one, I want a little bench, and then I want
Right.
like the start of every
I mean,
single
it's basically what do you call it? Or is it what's that game? Minesweeper or not
Minecraft.
Minesweeper? Minecraft, right? I mean, it's kind of like, but Minecraft you have defined tools and stuff. But here, obviously with AI you can do pretty much anything you want.
Right.
So you're using prompts instead of like chiseling, like using a shovel and
Right, right.
you
No,
building the
totally.
house.
But imagine, so like take that concept and then pair this with NFTs where, okay, so I'm in this vast infinite world and I am just prompting my way across each grid, like, hey, build this, make this, make this, make this. And each grid is, a certain number of pixels large. But when I want to secure that frame, like I want to own like this little tree, this little one by one grid right here, I mint that NFT. And then the next one, I mint the NFT right next to it. And I continue to mint these NFTs that could cost like $1. Let's say like every square you mint is like $1 or 1 cent or something. Um, and then you kind of own it. You have the certificate of ownership of this one area in the world. And you can kind of just like continue to build this world and own like, hey, this is my little island over here. I own it. Here's the NFTs that I have proving my ownership. Just like kind of we do in real life. You have a deed to
Right.
land,
Right. Yeah.
but now you have this, and you
I
can
mean, the
kind of
trick is like, how do you make it valuable? Like, why would anyone want to pay to get your land? I guess, I mean, it could be that's where the value of a network, like in making it a network, is key. And maybe it's enough people are there, and you spend a lot of time building a castle or something. I'm like, I want your castle because I don't have the time to, you
right.
know, prompt, and I'm too lazy. So I'm just gonna
Like
give you $1 or $10, and I'm just gonna take your
your
land.
castle is so sick.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that there is interest. I mean, it's kind of it's basically I mean, Minecraft basically has this economics already. I mean, people will spend hours and hours building something, and then there's a whole economy of people, of users, gamers who come in and buy stuff, because they don't want to spend the time. And it's interesting. It's a very interesting concept. It's in the going back to Web3 world, there was a game. There was this whole concept called play to earn, where the concept was that people in like Bangladesh or Philippines who the gamers would spend hours and hours basically leveling up your character in the game. And there were different types of games. There was one called Axie Infinity, which went bust. That was the most popular one. And then the idea was that somebody who from the West, like a first world country, who would have the money, rather than spending 20 hours leveling up, they would just give them something which would be like, for them, would be a lot of money in dollar terms, right? And then they would take the money, they would transfer the character to you. So it was like play to earn. But the whole thing fell apart because people, once they realized, oh, I can make money, everyone was just like, there were just way too many people like playing the game, trying to build stuff, and so there was an oversupply and there was not enough demand. So
Mm,
it's it's something, I guess a delicate balance.
right, right. It's super interesting. It's cool. And I mean, we talked today, so
Yeah. A lot
talked
of
about
aliens and web.
aliens and world building. We saw some, yeah, we talked about some cool stuff. Big week. I mean, there's a lot of news in this week, and yeah, so I guess we could wrap it here. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, no, it's fascinating. So
maybe
please,
we can start playing around with like these image models a little bit more. It's always like we have a limited amount of time. I'm like, I wanna now my brain just
yeah.
goes down this rabbit hole. I'm like, I wanna go build that now.
Yeah, no, for sure. We should do that. And yeah, for anyone listening, please leave us comments and stuff. If you feel like there's stuff you want us to cover, things we want to do. I mean, we're still figuring out the exact format that works, best. And so we're probably going to experiment a lot with different things. And hopefully yeah, like Pearson saying, we might show some code or actual like build apps and stuff. If that's something you guys would find interesting,
Right.
let us know.
That'd be super cool. Sweet.
Nice.
Okay, cool. Yeah. See you next week.
See you. Bye.